life is a classroom, right? You're here for a classroom, and there's specific things you need to learn. If you can look at it with the right perspective and be able to be like, I'm in hell right now, but I'm here to learn. This is preparing me for my next chapter. It will change your entire life.
All right, so we're back again, man. This is PDX Biz Talk. I'm your host, Zeke Jones, and of course, I'm with our host, Johnny, as well.
Yep.
You know, we've been pretty busy, man. Busy enough to still keep dropping a lot of episodes every week, and a lot of clips too.
Every week, actually.
Yeah, man, we've been staying on top of it, though. I mean, like, you know how business life is, just running a business yourself while also trying to help other business owners get their shit together.
Do home stuff with your family and stuff.
Yeah, and actually have a life.
And
What's
your dogs.
that?
Yeah,
I know, right?
What is that?
Yeah, that's probably one of the toughest ones. Is just that balancing act of like being human too, bro. But yeah, man, we have another crazy episode for you guys today. We have a very special business owner with us today, man. His name is Luke Jensen of Teslux Innovations, man. Clap it up, clap it up. How's it going, Luke? How's everything been, bro?
Pretty good, man. It's been a journey. It's
been
awesome. Yeah.
Since, me and him last saw each other, been years. So when I first started the detail shop is when I was by myself before my cousin even joined me. Right. I met you, which is off Pal in Gresham. That was.
Dude, I remember talking to you. I was like, bro, you need to get into detailing.
Yeah,
I remember that. And then you would come in.
Yeah, you didn't know he did.
No, big time.
No, he did. He did a lot.
And he's like, no, I don't want to do detailing. I don't want to do detailing. Yeah, no, straight up. Yeah, I remember that.
And good thing I did. Yeah, because when I came to your shop to do some work for your clients, right? Is that what it was?
Oh yeah, bro. You were the absolutely. Well, no, you actually came to my duplex. You actually came to my house with Kyle.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, bro. You came over for a barbecue, I think.
That's what it was. Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
it's been 8 years
before we were even business owners.
Yeah, it's just
absolutely
hanging out.
So you guys go way back, man.
Oh yeah, way back.
That's what's up. So for the people at home, kind of explain like who you are and what you do, and I guess a little bit of like who you serve as well with your business.
Okay, so I started out with Headlights Northwest probably 14 years ago, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And we were just doing custom headlights. And actually before that, we were just doing headlight restorations. And it was actually headlight lens restoration back then.
Like just outside?
Yeah, that's all I did. Because I was working at Stereo King. Worked there for like 9 years.
Okay,
yeah. Oh, it's coming back to you now.
Yeah,
huh?
I remember.
Oh, now it's coming back. Oh, yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so I would work 60 hours a week, and then after that I would go and buff headlights out of the trunk of my car.
Yeah.
And then from there finally got a shop, and then just expanded and grew as the customers told me what they needed. I just found ways to make it happen. So it was like HIDs, and then it was like interior LED bulbs, and then it was full custom headlights, and then from there it was full custom cars. And as the years went on, it just it got crazy. We had a massive facility over on McLaughlin. Like at its peak, probably 7 employees. We had, I don't know, seven or 8 projects going on, not including the headlights, because we were building headlights and shipping them and all that. Yeah, check.
So you mean like 7 projects like at a time?
Or
just like 7?
Oh yeah, like plus the headlight side. So we would have cars outside. We'd have this entire massive. I mean, it was like 5,000 square foot of just cars pulled apart. Yeah, and massive cab over engine trucks that we were building for SEMA. We were the official lighting partner for Stance Wars.
Right.
We were
your hands full.
Yeah, dude. I mean, those days were crazy, and I didn't really have any balance at all.
Yeah.
None. I mean, I literally built myself a little room in the back of the shop, and I would be down there 6 days a week, and then 1 day at home. Grinding for years. Yeah.
So how did you kind of get into like the automotive scene? Like, was that something that
it was my dad, dude.
Yeah.
My dad. Yeah. He was always a mechanic and engineer. He would literally, if it needed to be made, he would figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. And he was an entrepreneur, same as my mom. Actually, the majority of my family were entrepreneurs. And I just always loved cars, passionate about it, And it just, I knew I wanted to do a business in cars, but I never knew how to start. And to be honest, my dad one day called, because I was having a daughter at the time. Who is now 13. She came into my life, and he's like, what are you going to do with your life? Because I was working at Stereo Cane.
Right.
And I said, I don't know. And so he's like, let me think about that. And then probably a couple days later, he calls back and he's like, what about headlight restoration? I'm just like, dude, why would I ever want to do headlight restoration? Jiffy Lube does this. Every shop in town does this. He's like, it's not about what it is. It's about where you're going to go with it, right? What you're going to do with it. And to me, it was like, God was just like talking to me. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to trust the process. And so I was rooting cell phones at the time and doing custom ROMs and all this stuff. And I just added on the headlight portion, and then I had to make a decision, which one am I going to go with? And so I'm like, well, cars, I mean, come on now.
So at that point, you're kind of like 50-50, like, do I like this more? Do I? And you ultimately decided, I'm going with these cars.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already in the industry. I know people. I'm connected. Yeah.
Something, it draws you to it already, so it makes perfect sense to
exactly.
just
It's
go
natural.
with what you're passionate
and
about.
it's almost a natural ability. You know, it's almost like I just understand them.
And when did you start with Stereo King? Was it after that?
No, I was definitely working at Stereo King at the
During
time.
that time.
Oh, yeah. And he just called me. He's like, what you gonna do with your life? You're going to be a dad now.
Were you just salesman or an installer?
I mean, I was mainly sales, but I would go out to the parking lot all the time and troubleshoot and fix people's stuff, and it was just this constant desire to work on cars because I knew my stuff, and I was one of the number one salesmen there for sure, for years, and it just kind of evolved from there. You know, I don't know, the way I look at things, it's almost like I look at the core root of an issue, and then I just expand it into pieces and then figure out the solution and then go into it. And that's how I mean, when I started doing custom headlights.
It's the same thing. You take everything apart.
Bro, there was
hands-on with it.
so little information about it. Like 99% of the clients were like, well, what do you mean you can open a headlight? And I'm like, no, I can't just open a headlight. I can completely customize this and give you way better light output and a focus beam and give you better high beams, better low beams. They're just like, whoa.
What the heck?
Where did this come from? Yeah. And then, of course, that industry grew and expanded greatly, you know.
So you were pretty early on that.
Very early. I mean, so early that 80% of my products that were not projectors would fail within weeks.
Man.
Like, it was really bad.
That happened a lot to you when stuff failed and people are always going to talk shit about you, but at the same time, they don't understand that you're actually learning as you go, and somebody has to get the work out.
The technology was probably pretty primitive at the time, right?
Oh, it was incredibly primitive. Like,
What'd you do though when those people say, headlight noise headlights are bad? They went out within the first few weeks or whatever.
I mean, to be honest, I'm just way too real and way too straight up. So I'm just like, yo, come and talk to me. You know, and they're just like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you think I'm not going to take care of this? You think I'm not going to? Like, it's not like I want to have to go back into my work, but I'm absolutely willing to go above and beyond.
And to see what happened too, to make sure that happens.
And I think that's actually kind of unfortunate. Like when dissatisfied customers don't really give you a chance to address the situation before they run to social media or Google reviews, or they just kind of try to end you sometimes.
Real quick.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, instead of trying to fix it.
Yeah, I was actually really blessed with that because a lot of times I was the only one there.
Yeah.
You know, the only one, period, that could even work on it. So they couldn't take it anywhere else. They couldn't really do anything else. So they would just come to me, and then I would just take care of them.
Right.
You know, so, and that was early in the years when there was, it's, you know, you're promised a 99% success rate of the product. And in reality, it was so much lower than that.
So much lower, yeah.
Did you have like a pretty good warranty system, or
It was me covering everything, basically. I mean, the parts were covered, but
the labor isn't.
I mean, the
but
labor
the service
is
was provided
everything,
from
man.
you, so
So I mean, you would go and you'd build this entire light up, right? And it would look amazing,
right?
And in order to go back in there to replace a halo, right, you would have to go in there. You'd have to pull the bumper, pull the entire car apart, undo all your wiring that you did. And back then, I was nowhere near the level that I'm at now, where I build complete custom, like, plug-and-play harnesses and ship stuff, you know. So back then, it was undoing everything and then redoing it. I mean, some projects would take... I have over 500 hours in some projects where it was just a nonstop problem. And then I've come to find out, like, there was a Silverado. The customer was amazing. Wife, not so much. And it was an OEM defect where the headlight would actually leak. But because I went in there, and it's a perma-sealed housing too, so you have to understand, these things are sealed with like permanent rubber cement.
Yeah.
It does not give.
You're not getting in there
it
pretty
is
easily.
Yeah, it's about a 10-hour process back then to be able to split them, and then you have to reform the entire housing because it's so much heat and so much like pressure
Put in the oven,
and
right?
leverage. Oh yeah,
Damn.
so much that it basically would take an entire couple days just to get into the things, right?
Yeah.
But because I went into him, he kept having condensation issues, and so for over a year, I would just keep going in, and then come to find out it was an OEM defect, and that the housings, the back caps, basically the gasket on the back cap never actually fully seated the way it was designed,
You know, it was like,
and
yeah.
so they all leaked.
That sucks, bro.
But here I am,
You had to find out
500
the hard
hours
way.
in, and even then, what am I going to say? Oh, it's an OEM defect, not my problem. No.
Yeah, you can just push it off.
So I had to go and figure out a solution to their problem back then, which was really difficult because I had to figure out how to pressure check, first and foremost. I had to figure out how much pressure to put into it without blowing a seal or blowing anything else out of the housing. And I would use soapy water that I would spray all over it. I had to figure that out. That
out where the
wasn't
leak is.
that wasn't common knowledge back then.
There's
but I had to
YouTube
figure it
video
out.
for that.
Right, there wasn't no YouTube for it.
Bro. Oh, and you have to understand, when I started this, like, because I worked at Stereo King and I would have these customers that I just could not stand that would be forum users and YouTube certified mechanics.
Oh yeah.
I just
They're diagnosing everything.
refused to use any like YouTube or any resources like that. Because I figured if I can look at something and break it apart and figure out a solution, then I would understand it a lot more in depth and be able to take that knowledge and carry it with me in other projects, right? Instead of relying on resources that were out, which there really wasn't at that time.
Right.
But still, like, I've learned now that there's a lot of time that can be saved to utilizing your resources like forums and discussions and Discord, or for an example, or anything like that. Obviously not in my business specifically, because I'm basically the only person
You gotta be a
who
trailblazer.
does this. Oh yeah, like when it comes to Tesla's a whole nother animal.
Ooh.
You know, I mean, big time. They're all data driven, so everything is completely controlled by the car through their computer system. It's not a typical headlight or a typical car period will utilize triggers, like 12-volt triggers. So low beams, that's 12 volts on a specific wire. High beams, same thing. Turn signals, and they're all separated out. With a Tesla, there's 3 wires. There's power, ground, and data. That
For
goes
everything?
into it for everything, for these lights, and it goes into a driver. That driver translates that code into functions, and then fires the light itself. So when I first started doing Teslas, there was nobody had even really done anything with them except for pull them apart and paint them. That was it. And so I had to teach myself line bus and CAN bus, which was a horrible process. I don't recommend it to anybody.
Kind of explain what that is.
So it's the communication protocol that is used by Tesla to control their lights. Oh, and on top of this, you have to keep in mind that they do updates like on a regular basis. And in that update, they change the light. And they reflash that driver that controls everything. They flash it.
So does that affect your customers sometimes? Like, do they have
I
to?
mean, at first
Does the
it
work
was,
still operate? Do the lights still operate the same?
they do now. Now they do.
At this moment?
Yeah. Well, no. Like now they definitely
okay.
do. When I first started doing Teslas with Teslux, I would ship them the housing, and 50% of the time the turn signal would work and sync up with the car, and 50% of the time it wouldn't. So I had to figure out how to go in on a hardware level, right, to be able to figure out if it was a bad driver I was sending them or if it was a communication error. This was before I even figured out that I had to reverse engineer their line bus communications.
Are they open to like sharing that kind of data and
Absolutely
information?
not. They hate me.
See, that's something I was curious about, because a lot of, especially a company like Tesla,
Yeah.
bro, they're probably harboring all their secrets. to be honest.
And there's so much I've learned about these cars. I mean, like, every car has their own specific coding that is written for that car. Okay. So I don't know how they script this. I don't know how many people are employed to do this job, but I can imagine that it is a immense team.
They're working hard.
I mean, that or they make an algorithm or some sort of something to be able to make this all randomized, because the amount of code period that they would have to write to make it unique to each car. Because I would have a car come in, right?
Yeah.
And I would just be reading and watching the code go by, right? And I would have to figure out which part of that code was the headlights. Because you have to understand, on these networks, everything runs through everything.
The same thing.
Right? And that's also why, if anything is off, it's like a big problem.
Yeah. Because you have to comb through all the data.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That sounds stressful.
Yeah, it sounds tedious. So, like, what prevented you, or what made you make the change from just providing all kind of headlights versus, what drew you to Tesla?
Okay, so you get to the level that I was at, where you're building all these cars and you're doing all these things, but yet you're still not really profitable. You start recognizing the errors in your ways, and a huge part of that was efficiency and being able to reproduce your work, right? So every single light is different. Every single car is different. So when you're in there and you're doing custom work, I mean, we were doing custom trunks, air ride. We did bag northwest attached to headlights northwest. So we were doing air ride systems. We were doing full audio systems, obviously, because that was I love building high-end audiophile systems.
Right.
And I've built some crazy ones, I'll tell you that. And so everything was unique and everything was custom. And when you're in that deep, there's just no way to make it really actually profitable. So I knew I had to make a shift, and I knew I needed to make a product that would be able to be produced, not custom made every single time, right? And 2015, somewhere around there, I did my first Tesla, and that was a Model S, and it was a lot more simplistic back then. So I instantly was like, okay, let's go Tesla, because I always wanted to go Tesla. And I met a YouTuber that was called Everything Apple Pro. He came into the shop when it was Headlights Northwest, and I was talking to him about the idea, and he wanted to partner up with me. So he had a Model 3. So my first prototype was on his car, and he also had an Audi R8 that I was building at the same time. So I was building both cars basically at the same time, but the difference was that I was focusing on documenting every single thing that I did on that Model 3 and how it was done, and being able to take that information and form it into a way where I could have a team that is making them. And so that was the biggest change. We had boards developed, drop-in boards that I could grab for you guys, that would literally replace the OEM boards throughout the entire housing, except for the main headlight assembly, or the main low beam, high beam assembly.
So what would be the difference between those two boards, like the OEM one?
So the OEM it's amber at the bottom and white up on top, and these boards were white and amber, but they were animated.
Oh, shit.
And I called the lineup ludicrous. And we actually launched this company on his. So he got invited to go to the first ever Tesla test drive for YouTubers. It was like a big thing.
Oh, like an influencer event?
Yeah, it was like an influencer event. And it was to my knowledge, it was their first one, and he got invited to it.
That's it.
And so we launched the company by attaching our product onto that video that he made at the end, and basically using Brett, right, to do the video work. And then he attached a discount code to it, and we had over 30 orders right off the bat.
Jesus.
That's amazing.
And that's just Tesla's only, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a whole story to this, bro. Like, when it comes to the boards and stuff, knocked it out of the park. And by the way, the first time that I did that car, I hand soldered each LED and did everything. Like, it was total from the ground up custom, as if I would do anything else, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that I had the connections to be able to get the boards made and get the product made, and so we started developing that and moving forward.
So you had probably like a decent upfront investment on this specific business. Like, at one point did you notice that you were, breaking even and actually seeing some profit?
Well, I mean, it's really an up and down roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of our orders come in floods. Like, it's like a flood of orders, and then it's kind of dead for a little bit.
Of course.
But even now, like, we are profitable, but we're not profitable, right? Because it's an ebb and flow setup.
Oh yeah.
But that's where the Plaid series comes into play, and I kind of redid the entire game entirely. So back then it was all white and amber, and now it's fully animated and all controlled from the customer's phone.
Yes.
And then from there we made a Teslux network of products. So the headlights work with the fog lights. The headlight has a dedicated output for the underglow that ties in the entire functions of the car into the headlight, fog light, underglow system. So when a Tesla owner hits that turn signal,
It matches.
yeah, the headlights sync. The headlights are animated and sequential. The fog lights are animated and sequential, and so is the underglow. And now we've got the tail lights that we're releasing here. Actually, tomorrow they go on sale, and we're doing like a limited 10 sets for those.
That's
and
insane.
we're working with Alpha X directly.
Is it
on
first time
those.
doing taillights or no?
Well, I did tail lights on Philip's car, and those were red and amber, and those were really, really cool, but extremely impossible to reproduce. Like,
That's wild.
I documented everything, and I went in depth on it, but the way that it was done back then would just be impossible for a customer to install. Because I have to develop this where a customer can go in and do this job.
Oh, I
So
see.
everything has to be as simple
DIY.
as
User-friendly.
possible. You can't mess it up, and everything is just kind of common sense, like laid out. So, like for example, with the headlights, the only thing the customer has to do to the housing is take their OEM computer, their OEM driver,
Yeah.
and put it onto this housing. So it's 4 screws, comes down, disconnects, plugs in, goes up. After that,
sounds simple
oh yeah, dude, and they install the headlight, and then there's an interconnect harness that is developed so that they communicate between the two. And then there's outputs for the fog lights that are out of each headlight that plug directly into our fog lights that we produce in the package, and those just plug right into the stock plug.
It's crazy how much you gotta do.
Right.
So when somebody buys something from you, do they buy the whole set like this right now? If I was to buy it from my Tesla, if I had one,
Yep.
I'll get this from you. It's up to me to go take the headlights apart on my car, right?
You ship them out, right?
Yeah, all you've got to do. Yeah, we ship them out or we
Yeah.
install them locally. So they pull the bumper,
Okay.
pull the stock headlights, and drop these in.
Okay.
So there's no like it's really
It's not that hard.
It's really simplistic.
Yeah.
And I have videos for them to follow
Gotcha.
and guides. If they were to try to do this without the way it's designed, like the old way that I used to do things, it would have been
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
That's why those taillights. Now we have taillights that work with that Teslux network, and it works with everything. And we have interior too that we have now. So I knew I needed to develop a system where they could upgrade it as they go, but that it would all communicate simultaneously together, and that's what we finally got. So they use one app. They pair it to the controller or controllers, depending on what products they have. And then they can either individually control where they want the light to be, or they can synchronize it, or they can just have it flowing like organically. Yeah.
Is it your app or is it like a company you use?
It's Ghost Lighting. It's Blue Ghost is what
so
we
you use their lighting stuff?
We use their controller. Yep. We just integrate it into the housing where everything is built in.
So is this only one design you have? So is it only black housing, all this? That's all you have, or do you have different designs?
So we have for the pre-facelift. So this is the Matrix. So this is the performance model that they have on their cars.
Right.
So there's this, and then there is the pre-facelift for the Model 3 and Y. This is Model 3 and Y as well. We have Model S packages and Model X packages as well. So we have different products for whatever vehicle.
And
they
is it
have.
all one set price? Or does
No.
it, I mean, does
No.
it like this is one step price compared to like the other design you have?
So yeah. So they can go on our website and like this has a like, here's your headlights. Do you want to add the fog lights? Do you want to add the underglow? Right, and they can add it at any time.
So how much is this then right now? Like, just retail.
This set right here is right about $2,100 to $2,200.
Gotcha. Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Do they vary
obviously,
per model, or is it just like all pretty much the same?
Yeah, I would say so. The Ludicrous, the white amber for the pre-facelift, those I'd have to check, but I believe those are about $1,800 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there into the Plaid series lineup, they're right about 2 to 22, depending on if it's the Matrix or the pre-facelift.
What model do you usually get orders of? The more expensive, like Plaid and all that, or the basic?
Yeah, definitely Plaid. I mean,
Because that's the more
these
recent.
are going to shows, and
Yeah.
and when people see that everything is working together, and I mean, there's a lot more that go into these. So like, so when a customer walks up to their car, the entire lighting system, if it's a part of our Plaid series, all animates and integrate. Like it basically says hello, like it's a startup. So the entire, from the inside out, and then the entire car, and then it comes back, and they have full control over this. So like, if they want the underglow to run white or amber or whatever color they want while they're driving, they can do that. If they want it off, they can do that. Like it's very customizable on the fly. When they walk away, it does that same animation, but in reverse, as like a goodbye.
The goodbye log.
And there's not just one animation. There's like 6, 7, 8 different animations that they can choose from. And they can choose the colors that they want it to animate, and the speed and the size of the separate. I mean, dude, like it is full. I mean, all from the phone. You know what I mean? And then it's all saved. So once they set it up the way they want, it's saved in there. So the
profile.
so the next time they go in, it automatically does it. Same as the turn signals. There's like 6+ different animations for
crazy.
turn signals.
Are you able to control these right now and make them do anything different? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's you just literally pair to it, and you can go through. Let's see here.
right?
We can do waves, and these. So there's literally show modes, right?
Right.
That you save and you create, and this is just the show mode part.
That's dope.
And then when you get into it, like the car, so there's all the turn signals, the brakes. If you are working with the tail lights, building blocks. This is where you can go in and set your zones up. And we do all this programming for the customer, so they don't have to go in here. But if they wanted to, they could go in and select different zones. So there's like zone 1, zone 2, and then on those zones, those are those colors,
Right.
right? So yeah, I
pretty
mean,
tight.
there's a lot to it.
a lot
I mean,
to it,
and of course it can run just white. You know, it can run just amber.
I'm sure people were probably worried about that. Like, does it have to be fancy and flashy? all
Oh
the time?
yeah, I mean, people think that they can't just do solid color changing too.
Right.
They thought, like,
Oh, yeah.
does it always have to animate? It's like, no. Can we use this while we're driving? Well, you got to be careful because you know it's not necessarily a legal thing to do if you're having it go through any color other than white and amber. But if you're just doing white and amber, then you're probably going to be okay. But if you push the limits, you know,
Red and
Don't,
white.
don't start running around with the police siren.
on our website, it literally says, "With great power comes great responsibility." Yeah, because it does. Because you can really have a lot of fun with these. You just have to be careful. But when you have to understand too, these cars are sitting at a supercharger. You know, whenever they're sitting in parking lots, like all of these different times, they can run all these different modes.
Yeah.
And they're very bright. Like our underglow is insanely bright. It's
LED?
It's straight up probably I would say without a doubt the brightest on the market.
Do you make your own LED? Or
Yeah, we make all the strips, the entire
whole
set.
thing?
Yeah, so we get a roll of strip, and then we literally make it perfectly built and fit for the car.
How much is the underglow?
For the Blue Ghost version, it's $550.
What does that mean? Blue Ghost.
That will integrate with this.
yeah, right.
And then the other thing is Tesla sent out an update where they used to keep the battery charged at all times, and they're like, oh, people are using that. We got to disable that. So they went and disabled it, right?
Yeah.
And of course, their excuse was range. You know, I'm sure. So, so we also had to go in and develop a way for the battery to be able to be disconnected from automatically. So inside these housings, inside our Blue Ghost controllers for our underglow, we have a battery saver module that we designed, where when you are away from the car and nothing's being used, it disconnects from the battery automatically.
Oh, that's dope.
The moment, like if you hear this, you hear that click,
You're good.
that's built into the headlight. And that is disconnecting from the battery, so there's no low voltage
It's like a
battery
breaker.
warnings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so same as the OEM functions. Because anything that's animated like this has a constant current draw, a parasitic draw, because they're data driven, but the power's still going through the LEDs and the resistors and the capacitors and everything else, and the ICs. So it's pulling current at all times. And if you don't have that auto shut off, you're going to have low battery issues, which we never had to struggle with before, but then they updated it, and so it's like this constant like cat and mouse game. Like I find out that an update happens, I have to find a solution for it. 9 times out of 10 we're already covered it, like it's not a problem. In this case, it definitely was a problem, so we had to go and figure out how to solve
Work around
that.
it.
Yeah, same as the line bus stuff that I was talking previously. The problem is it wasn't really the older version, the headlight, that I was having issues with. It was the matrix, because these are hugely advanced. These are made by Hella. The other ones are made in China. They're Taiwan. So these are Germany, all CAN bus data driven headlights. I mean, they're crazy. They'll literally display Tesla on the ground for you. They're turning when you're turning. They're looking up and down as you're going up and down hills. You know, they're really advanced. And so half the time it would work perfect, and half the time it just wouldn't. All our stuff worked great, but the OEM functions, not so much. And so that's when I had to do that major push and figure that CAN bus stuff out and the line bus stuff out, because now I connect it to my computer. I have full control over everything. I can adjust the height, I can turn it left and right. I can do the low beam, the high beam, different outputs of it. I can literally test every single aspect of the light to ensure that it's solid before shipping out. That's
key.
Dude, it was a make or break.
Yeah.
It's like you either figure this out or you're going to continually have losses because every time you send a set out, there's 50% chance that you're going to have to send another set out.
Yeah, and I mean,
keep you on your toes.
Yeah, and I feel like this field might be kind of saturated, because I have this guy who has a show car. I'm not gonna say who it is, but he has a show car and he has custom headlights on it. And I asked him about them. He said, "Oh yeah, they're just $300 headlights that I found online, and they match the car." I was like, that's hella cheap. He's like, "Bro, I don't care if they break. I'll go buy another set for $300." He's like, "Why would I spend $2,000 on a set?" Is what he told me. But it's a nice show car.
Yeah.
But he's like, it looks good though. It looks good. Everything looks nice on it. It's just $300.
Does it
He's
look good though?
It looks good.
I mean, did you
For
get
you, it's
up
different
in
because you
it?
do this every day, bro.
Yeah.
Like
Been in
you're
the-
detailing, right?
No,
So
yeah,
like
looks
you
good.
go up, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, it matches the
that
car.
buffing. I see those.
I'll show you what it is
lines.
after this. I'll show
Yeah,
you what
I
it
got
is. It
you, I
looks
got you.
good. It looks good on the car. Like for
Yeah.
for me, you're probably different because you work on this and you can see those
I see
things.
everything.
But me, I'm
It's
like,
like you a
I'm like,
detailer,
yeah. But for me, I'm like, it's like me looking at paint. Like, oh, that's scratched. Like, you know, you're probably like, oh, it's shiny. What you're talking about? You know. But yeah, it's the same thing. But yeah, I was like, what? I was like, it makes sense. Like, it's $300. It'll last them whatever he said, like 6 to 8 months. He said.
Yeah, that's why I had to make a shift too.
Yeah.
Is because the quality wasn't anywhere near the level of quality we were doing. I mean, we were doing airbrushed internals.
I remember
Like,
that.
we had, we do a Godzilla or a Hulk.
I saw
you know?
that.
I mean, dude,
crazy.
we did crazy builds, man.
Who was the guy that was in the airbrush for you again?
It was Dan.
I remember, he told me.
It's Splat Designs.
Yeah, it's by design.
Yeah, the dude is, he's insanely skilled.
I remember like the stuff you done with the airbrush, and all inside, all custom. It was like
All
he
custom.
did, like all inside. It's crazy. Like inside.
We airbrushed Godzilla in there before.
It's sick,
for-
yeah.
And it
for
lights up too,
GTRs.
or is it like?
No, it's just
It's
it's
like-
just the
looks
paint
dope.
is
It's like where
just
the black is at.
super.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's really we do
yeah, right
crazy
there.
different
That's sick.
designs,
That's
and
sick.
then of course everything that we did back then was all custom. So the sky's the limit. Really, we would make the entire thing animated when it didn't really have a reason to be animated, but it was animated, so it would look really cool. Like the turn signals would all integrate together and everything. And back then, that was really above what anybody, everybody's like, because when I started, nobody did nothing really. It was like maybe 20 companies in the U.S., maybe.
Yeah.
Of course, no one was helping each other out back then.
It was
No, it's
strict
like, no,
competition,
bro,
probably.
no, this is war.
I'm doing it
Survival
first.
of the fittest. What you got, bro?
Yeah. Speaking
know?
of back then, like, what kind of methods did you kind of use to kind of get the business off the ground? Like, where did you go? Are you going to events? Were you doing anything like to really get the word out, or what?
Oh, dude, everything.
Networking.
Craigslist at first, and then networking and making dealer agreements with them to be able to push that when they sold the car. Definitely went to car shows, and I had to be really kind of grassrooted into the car show scene because you know, I might have been in the automotive industry, but the car show scene was a whole another animal. Yeah,
I feel like it's hard for you though, like back then, like trying to like make custom headlights for everything.
Man.
Because for like
and,
your
and
field,
dude, it would take so many hours.
because I feel like you did a good job because it's either you focus on one type of niche like Tesla, or be like HID Systems, you know, the company here, and just do only HIDs only and just sell that, you know. You can't be in the middle like you did. You everything, you sold everything, and like it's just like people, and then you were like, oh, I'm gonna charge this much money, and people are going, oh, I'm not gonna pay that much money because it's so much. So it's like, oh, it's good that you did, you know, you focus on one niche.
Then we built a reputation, and we were like known across the board, especially throughout the U.S. Like, I mean, we got to the point where we were getting hit up by shows. They wanted to start doing like shows with us, you know, like TV stuff like that.
That's sick.
And yeah, it just wasn't me. Like, because then I come to find out they're like, yeah, you know, we'll definitely cause up some drama. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is a shop. Like, there's already enough drama here. You look at the testosterone levels around here. Like, are you sure you really want to do this?
They want to do that fake drama.
Yeah, and then when I found out it was fake, I'm just way too transparent and real, and I'm just like, I can't fake. Like, it's just, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like my face is just like, it will tell you what even if I'm smiling, my face is going to be like,
like
this is what I really think, you know? So yeah, I mean you know, back in the day, bro.
But what's next? I mean, you went from Headlight Northwest. Now you have Teslux. I mean, what's next for the business? Like, do you want to still do this? You want to have this shop here on your property that we're at right now? Or do you want to eventually get a big location, have more employees?
No,
and not?
no. I mean, I had that. I had to make a change. You know, like there was a huge event that happened in my life where my dad passed away out of nowhere. And it was, you know, we were supposed to go to SEMA together and do all this stuff. And at the same time, my daughter's at home. She's crying every time she sees me because I'm a stranger. And she's not crying because I'm a stranger. She's crying because she misses me and she never sees me.
Right.
You know, my son just came into my life, and God put too many things in line for me to ignore, right? Like, I'm a very hard to stop person. I'm very stubborn. I'm very focused. Like, I'm open-minded, but I'm at the same time, I'm very hyper-focused on what I'm doing, and I'm willing to sacrifice anything but my family, right? Like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, my hair, everything. Like, I will sacrifice whatever it takes to make that dream or that vision happen, and I will pivot along the way. But when that started occurring, I knew it was basically like all this stuff was happening, and then my dad passed away. And he called me the night before and asked me to come up there. And I was like, I'm prepping for Stance Wars. I have to get these cars down. I've got 6 cars here. 4 of them are in pieces. Like, I can't come up there, but I can definitely come as soon as the show is over. Well, he didn't make it, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, there was an event that happened where basically he was taken out against his will, and I didn't realize the situation that was happening. And you know, that was like my mentor.
Yeah.
You know, he definitely. My mom is a mentor for sure, but my dad was the one that was like the kick in the ass. Yo, this is what happened. You know, we got to do this. We got to do that. And so when all that happened, I just kind of stopped giving a shit about what people think, right? Like, I was trying to catch, I was like playing that cat and mouse game, but I was doing it in a way where I was still me and I was still real, but I wasn't able to be me with my family. I was sacrificing everything. And, you know, my family was super supportive, but at the same time, it gets to the point where you do this for enough years and you just become a stranger, right?
Yeah.
And so I just hit this breaking point where I knew I had to make a change. And I knew that as big as I was and as busy as we were and how much stuff was going on, I've tried to step away from the business. And every time it was a nuclear disaster,
Man.
right? Because it's almost like the same way where I was building the business, and that's why we were really moving forward. And I had an amazing team behind me.
Right.
But then I had some projects come up that I could only do. And then I had to hyper focus on those projects. And as soon as I was hyper focusing on those projects, the business just started kind of nuclear detonating because I wasn't out there running,
But don't you think that's going to happen here as well? Because
so that's why we moved here.
I know, but do you have so for example, let's say if you go on a week or if you go on vacation for a week, is it going to be running?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so now it's different compared to
way
back
different.
then. Okay,
from complete custom, nonstop problems, nonstop solutions, right? Like I was the problem solver.
Yeah, of course.
So I'd go into a car and they're working on something, and I'd be like, okay, let me figure out a solution to this.
But now, this is way different. Yeah,
smart.
Yeah, this is different. Now the problems that come, I still have to fix, but they're not problems
They're not
that
on a
only
daily.
you can save.
Yeah.
It's just like epic for me. Problems come here and there, easy stuff.
Yeah, you got to
easy
handle
solution.
it. You got to handle it. And mine's definitely not easy because it's like they do an update that completely changes my entire layout and design, which now I've been able to prepare for that, right? Like I'm way ahead of the game now.
Right.
Now I'm 10 steps ahead of what they're doing. So I can not have to worry about that as much.
That's great.
The parts that I have to be in are, when I'm developing a new product, that's me. But I have a team behind me that's incredible. Like I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. And that team follows a production schedule that we do things in a very specific process. Everything is exactly the same. Everything is built the same. The way that it's processed is the same. Every single thing is built. So it's not custom. The only thing custom is me developing new products. But the biggest difference here is that my son can come down and say, "Hey, Dad, can you put my helmet on? I want to ride my dirt bike," right? Like back then, I was in a completely different area. So I wasn't able to go up and have lunch with my son. I wasn't able to go up and sit with my daughter when she got home from school, had a bad day.
Yeah, here's different because you live right here.
It's way different, And there was definitely an adjustment period there because I had to draw that line where it's like, okay, is this a necessity that you need me or you just want me, right? So there's definitely that balance, but the fact that I can be able to be here is huge, dude. It's changed our entire life. Like my kids have benefited from it. My wife has benefited from it. My mental health has benefited from it.
Definitely.
And I might not be as famous, but I don't really care.
You're chilling. Yeah.
I don't really care, dude.
There's more important things than fame, right?
Yeah. I mean, the moment that I learned that I had to kind of be fake in certain situations was the moment where I was like,
screw this.
Yeah, this ain't me.
Too real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just way too real.
Do you have any other business ideas you have that you want to go and do and execute?
As an entrepreneur, you always have ideas, right? And the trick is to make it so that it piggybacks off what you're doing, right? You don't want to have to take, like you did screen printing, right? Like I'm sure there was a huge shift in that to learn that. There was a huge learning curve. The trick is to find something that's like this even balance where you can kind of shift into it, you're utilizing your skills. And that, I have all these ideas, but I've learned that if I don't focus on something and give it my all, it kind of doesn't become what it's supposed to be.
That's why it's key to have partners and other stuff too.
Yeah, and I do have a business partner, but he's mainly on the back end. He's a CFO.
Yeah. I'm talking about like starting other business like me, like my brother's joining me. It's not just me by myself.
Yeah.
My cousin's with me with Epic.
Definitely.
This is with me. Me and him with this. So it's cool. Do you have like partners to do stuff that way?
Plus, he seems like he's very much hands-on driven. A lot of stuff that you split with different businesses, you're more like admin focused.
Yeah.
When it's like the dude who's like really like crafting some shit, like
That's
not that you
different,
don't work hard or anything like that, but like it's a
do what he
different
does.
type of
No.
approach
You're
because you feel
developing
like
products
a
from
lot
the
of it's
ground.
on your shoulders, right?
Yeah.
It is, and what I've kind of learned is when I did that expansion, right, and I did all the custom stuff, there's always something that goes by the wayside, and so what I've mainly focused on now is just building this company and giving this company my all and making sure that as we go along, I can be able to foresee opportunities, and I'm always thinking about them. So instead of going into another business and starting this whole other thing, I just focus on what I'm doing, and I figure out how to refine it and how to expand it and how to build it from there. Like, that's how the Plaid series happened. I didn't want to do colors because obviously I've got like PTSD from doing custom color changing stuff. And so I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. You know, but I'm open-minded, but I have this like fear that I'm going to fall into the same trap. And guess what? I kind of still fell into the same trap, but I was knowledgeable and prepared to overcome it. And when I did that, it was because of the demand. So a lot of times I listen to my customers and I just build upon what they say, and then I make it feasible. Because a lot of times it's impossible. But then sometimes you can go like, okay, I'm going to take this from here. I'm going to take this from here. And then I'm going to put it into a completely different perspective. And when you see that perspective and you have that vision and you push forward, it blows people's minds. Hence
definitely.
what we did.
Yeah.
Johnny and his businesses, bro, let me tell you, dude. He's always got businesses he wants to do. You're very driven to I remember I was like, at first I'm like, yo, bro, you've got to start detailing. You didn't want to do that. And then once you started that, dude, you were like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm like, bro, just focus on your thing.
Yeah, I remember you told me that. You told me to focus on one thing.
Don't split it up. Like, you got to get your craft right. And then once you get your craft right, then you can go and do your thing.
Yes, sir.
You did. Boy, you're like, no, bro, no. I know what I
remember.
You were so determined.
I thought I could be like, I could do everything at once, but no, I had to do Epic, to be like my main thing, and then I can
because that's your foundation.
You buy more free time.
That's your foundation.
Especially having a team, it's pretty much self-brand now. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's your foundation, and as long as you build a really solid foundation and a really good team around that foundation that have bought into the vision, that's the magic. Because once you do that, it's amazing.
Before we close this out, man, I gotta know, like, what was one of the biggest life lessons that you learned over the course of your journey with this entrepreneurship stuff, man?
It's a lot.
It's been a lot of them, man.
Shit, give me a top 3 or one.
Enjoy the journey and not the destination. Because when you get to the destination, you never actually feel the way you think you're going to feel.
Unless you enjoy that,
And when you enjoy the journey, even when you're in the trenches, the number one thing that I've learned is that if you're in a hard time and you're in business and it's hard as hell and you don't see a way out, the voice, I call it the inner bitch, right? When the inner bitch is like, just quit, dude. Just do it. Just give up.
Yeah.
You want to. It's like, yeah, of course I do. But if you push past that, the gifts that you get from that, the knowledge, the experience is amazing, because then you can take that and you think that it's like life is a classroom, right? You're here for a classroom, and there's specific things you need to learn. And when you're in this process of life, if you can look at it with the right perspective and be able to be like, I'm in hell right now, but I'm here to learn. This is preparing me for my next chapter. It will change your entire life. Because like right now, I'm going through the trenches. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm dealing with that, a lot of times that inner bitch is like, dude,
just give it up.
How is it going to happen? And then you start psychoanalyzing how it's going to happen, and then you really get in trouble. Like, you can't do it. You just can't do that. Like, you have to just put your head down, and instead of looking at the top of the mountain, you need to look 3 steps forward. Because if you look at the top and the peak, you're never going to get started. You're never going to move forward.
You're just overwhelmed.
Oh man, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to self-talk is going to be defeating. And like, you're never going to get there, bro. Like, what are you doing? But if you just focus on the next 2 to 3 steps, it's amazing. Because all of a sudden you're zoned and you look up, you're like, oh, I'm halfway. I'm like almost to this peak. What is up? And then when you get to that peak, there's a whole nother peak on the other side.
There's more to it.
But guess what? You got to go down the valley. So that valley is that part where you learn. And that valley is that part where you're learning as you go down, and you're feeling like you're falling apart and you feel like you don't have it all together. But guess what? All you're doing is just getting that knowledge and that momentum to get right back up to the next peak, because it's higher.
That's so true, man.
So you just got to stay focused.
Man.
And surround yourself with the right people. Like, just trim the fat. If it's somebody that's negative, if it's somebody that's bringing you down,
get rid of them.
Get rid of them, and do it. Don't burn the bridge, right? Don't make it about them. Like, take your accountability, right? Like, that's a huge thing. Taking accountability for everything, even if it's not your fault, it's your fault. Like, because that's the way that you grow. And that way you don't burn bridges, but you just can give them the freedom and the space that they need to be able to learn the lessons, especially when you're trying to help somebody and they're not really absorbing what you're doing, what you're trying to say. Give them time. They'll come back. And they might be the person that you need them to be at that time, right? Like, don't force things. Just let it flow. Like grind, stay focused, but just let it flow. Because if you try to force it, it's gonna destroy you. You're gonna be chasing yourself. You're never gonna catch up.
That's facts, man. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you having us over here, your house,
Yeah,
your property,
man.
and your
We
shop.
pulled up to the shop. He brought the shop to him. You know,
Yeah,
what I mean?
man.
He used to go to the shop. Now the shop came to
Exactly.
him. So
Yes, absolutely.
got to make sure you make those priorities. You know what I'm saying?
You got to make the adjustments,
Adjustments.
man. Family over everything, bro. 100%.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again, man. Shout out to Teslux Innovations. If you guys need some new headlights and new systems
your
going
Tesla.
on for your Tesla,
Only
make sure you
Teslas,
tap
though.
in. Yeah, man. Very, very niche now. We know what we got. We know what we got going on. So yeah, man. Tell them where they can find you if there's any social medias that you want them to check out, or if you have an online shop.
We're all over the place. So Instagram, Teslux Innovation at Teslux Innovations, Twitter, Teslux Innov, TesluxInnovations.com, Facebook, we're there. YouTube, we have all our videos and our install videos there. Yeah, I mean, we're all over the place.
Cool.
We're in Dub Magazine. We're all over the place.
Yeah,
over the
a little
place.
light flex, a little light flex.
Yeah, just a little bit,
Yeah, man. So
right.
you know what it is, man. Speaking of hitting the social medias, man, make sure you guys go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You're probably here already, honestly. Just hit that button. It's right there.
Subscribe,
It's
like,
right there.
comment.
If this is the audio version, we'll make sure you just hit that button wherever it is, whatever platform you're on, man. Leave a comment if there's somebody you want to see on PDX Biz Talk.
Or email us.
Yeah, you can email us too. We've been looking for some of the best entrepreneurs out there to really tap in and see what's going on with their movement and highlight that too, man.
Yep.
So thanks for watching this episode, man, and thanks for joining us and thanks
Absolutely.
for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
See y'all
man.
next
Catch you guys
one.
on the next one. Peace.